You're live.
I'm live.
I heard that.
This camera sucks.
Hello? Anybody there?
I'm just gonna stand here, sit here, and just stare at a blank screen. Just stare at myself on a screen. I have one person here. It looks like that.
Yeah, that's you.
It probably is.
Yes.
How do I share the link? Right there, I guess.
What happened to your video? Can you still see it?
Probably.
Hello?
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Is it anybody home?
This is Randy here. It looks like I see two people. I don't know if one of them are me. My wife's here beside me off camera. She's laughing at me because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And this whole thing could end up being a complete disaster, but that's okay. I'll wait a couple minutes to see if anybody else joins in. Let's see. Looks like 3 people now. So we got 3.
Well, who's there?
I don't know. If you're joining in, type in the chat. I don't know how any of this works, but let me know where you're joining in from and who you are. And like 4 people now. This is great. Diane's here. How are you? Again, this will be probably the worst video you've probably ever seen because I have absolutely no idea how I'm doing. It's now 7:18. It took me 18 minutes to figure this out. Again, my wife Tracy's here beside me. You can't see her, but she doesn't want to be on video, but she's here to laugh at me just along with everybody else. So this is completely out of my comfort zone. Completely, I don't do video at all. But one of the things I've been wanting to do is either podcasting or vlogging or things like that. And I figured this would be a good way to jumpstart that, right? Hi, Angela. How are you? So I figured this would be a good way to kind of get in this, I guess, right, and break out of my bubble, right? I know there's a lot of podcasts and different things like that, and my idea for when I started actually is, have guests from time to time, and I know you can do that through Zoom or Skype or different things like that, but not have the interview be like all MS related, right? So we'll have, we'll probably touch on the subject a little bit, but then just go like who you are beyond the MS, right? Like, because we all know, we've all seen that meme out there, like, those 2 letters, MS don't define who we are. So it'd be nice just to get to know the people beyond MS, right? Hello, everybody. Hey, Steve. Is that Cav? Is that you? But so I wanted to do that. So today, like from Chat MS on Monday, my wife's still laughing at me over here. So Chat MS on Monday, we talked about the COVID-19 situation, and it sounded like a lot of us are nervous, right? I guess to say the least. A lot of us are nervous about what's going on. There's so many unknowns, and just like everybody else out there is nervous, right? But it seems like for us, we have so much extra to be nervous about, because with MS itself, right, we just get a common cold and we're knocked down, for weeks at a time sometimes, or like even the smallest head cold, I guess, isn't really small anymore because it can just completely knock us out. So you have that aspect of this disease, right? How is that going to affect our MS itself? But then two is the treatments. I think I know on my end, the treatment end is what's concerning, especially for me being with Gilenia. And I think you should start your non-MS discussion explaining your stance on snacks. Hers snacks. It's got to be hers chips the whole way. I forgot where I was. What was I talking about? Okay. Anyway, so hers chips, no Lays. You can't have any Lays. You got to make sure you buy all the hers that you can while we're quarantined. It'll make everything much better. Just trust me. I've got no scientific evidence to back that up, but just trust me on that. It's got to be hers. So anyway, we were talking about how we're all nervous with medications and things like that, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But it seemed like a lot of people, as we're hunkered down, right, or we're quarantined, it seemed like everybody was on the right idea of wanting to communicate more, right? And we talk about, just how the MS community is there to support each other, and that was actually why the chat was created, is to bring everybody together. And as we figured this would be a good way to do that, right, to get our minds off of things for a little bit. And I see 9 people in here now, which is making me a little nervous too, because again, I don't do this, but I do have a thumbs up though, so we'll take that. So either it's not showing me the thumbs down, or maybe there's not any. But so anyway, I guess the thumbs up went away. This is great. So I just wanted to chat. I really have no agenda. I got 2 thumbs up now. I just have no agenda really today. So I guess I would just start just giving you my story. So my name's Randy. I think a lot of you guys know that if you're coming here from Twitter or Facebook or whatever. But I was diagnosed in November of 2012. So I actually woke up. It was July 1st, actually 2012. I woke up and I had numbness around my lower back and my tailbone area. And maybe over the next couple hours, I just kind of blew it off, right? Because I used to go play ice hockey and things like that. And of course, I can't skate well, so I fall and so all this stuff. And so I thought maybe I fell, took a hard fall, kind of messed up. But over the next several hours, it actually expanded from pretty much everywhere, from the chest down. I wasn't weak. I wasn't anything like that. It was all sensory. And even I could tell if something was touching me. I could tell if something was touching me. It just didn't feel right. And it's so hard to explain that, but I know you guys would probably understand. But so I went a little bit more, and I called the on-call doctor, and she's like, "Yeah, get to the emergency room." So we went to the emergency room, and that always takes forever. Actually, I'll have to warn you now, because my wife always tells me I say a million times. So any knows that I say, just kind of ignore that, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we went to the emergency room, and they did all these tests, and they actually even did an MRI of my spine. They were checking for meningitis, things like that. And they actually did. I remember them doing a test on the bottom of my feet, and they were like, "Oh, is it sharp or is it soft?" And I remember I couldn't really tell the difference. So long story short, they said the MRIs came back fine on my spine, and they sent me home. And they said, "Well, if anything gets worse, come back." And I woke up the next day, and I got out of bed. I went to walk, and every time I would take a step, it would just tingle up my legs. So then I'm like, all right, so we got to go back. So the very next day, we went back to the ER, and they did another MRI, and again said everything was fine, right? All the blood work came back fine, everything that came back perfectly fine. So they set me up with this neurologist that was in the hospital. So I saw him the next day, and he looked at me right in the eye, and he said, "There's nothing wrong with you." He actually used those words. He said, "There is nothing wrong with you." He's like, "You're making it up." He's like, "You're completely fine." And I'm just like, no, I mean, it's not. And, Tracy's here with me. She'll probably tell you that I am an anxious person, right? So I worry about everything. So I would know if it's anxiety or not. But I knew just something wasn't right. So, but he told me, he said, there's literally nothing wrong with you. Can we make a drinking game out of the You know what? Go for it. So I do have water, by the way. It's not apple juice. I don't know if you happened to see Dr. Boster's YouTube video the other night, but On a side note, though, if you guys are on YouTube, please make sure you do subscribe to Dr. Boster and Dr. Bieber, their channel. They put out great videos like on a weekly basis.
Not music videos.
And what'd you say?
It's not music videos.
Great videos, very informative videos and things there, especially now with the COVID-19 situation. Both of them have actually very, they have very informative information out there, and they just keep updating it as more and more stuff comes out. But anyway, so back to the doctor's office. So a couple of days after that, I started getting tingling in the last three fingers on both hands, actually. And so I went back, I called him, and he's like, oh, well, that's the neck then. He's like, so, okay. So I got another MRI of the C-spine and then the brain, and then that's where they saw the lesions. I have one lesion on I believe it was my C2 spine, and another lesion up in my brain. So then all of a sudden it went from, hey, there's nothing wrong with you, you're making it all up, to now all of a sudden it's MS. And I'm just like, wait, like, what are you talking about, right? So, and I was the same way at the time as I'm finding a lot of people now. So like I've heard of MS, right? But I didn't know what it was, right? So my first thought is like, well, no, it can't be, right? So I was, just confused. So he's like, it's a mess. And then I started asking questions, and every time I would ask a question, he would almost just like cut me off, right? Or he was very like, I don't know what word I'm looking for right now. I'm blanking. Abrupt. Thank you. He was very abrupt. And he would just like cut me off, or, so I would go and I'm doing all this research, right? And I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's Lyme disease, right? Because I did find a tick on me, a couple months, I think, before this. And so and I start to ask him, he's like, no, it's not that. No, it's not that. And I go into the office, and he literally takes like 4 pamphlets of medication, and it happened to be all the injectable meds. So it was like Rebif, Avonex, Copaxone, and one other one. But he literally took them and he threw them on the counter right in front of me, and he said, here, pick one. And that's actually what he said. He just said, here, pick one. And I'm like, what do you mean pick one? You used to go, you go to the doctor, right? And then you go to the doctor and they tell you what's going to make you feel better, right? And so this is the first time, like, I tried to tell him, because he's like, pick one. He's like, this will guarantee you never have any other issues again, which we all know even now that's not the case, right? Like, we hope for that. But we all know that's not guaranteed. And I even asked him at this point, Gilenya was still like new on the market. It was just released. And he's like, no, we don't know anything about that. We don't know anything about that. But in the meantime, I went and I made an appointment with an MS specialist in Delaware. And so I stretched it out for 3 months. I saw him, and he did more MRIs and actually had 3 more lesions show up on the brain in that time. It was about 3 months to get into the specialist I see now. But he was able to confirm it was MS, and he actually sat down with me. I think my first appointment with him was probably almost 2 hours long, which is really cool. Like, he went through probably every single medication that existed out there, and he approached it and he said, there's a lot of these medications out there that have results, but he knows Gilenya was in all these trials, and he actually was talking to me about Gilenya as well as even Tysabri at the time. And at the time, Tysabri, like, it's funny, like, I've been on Gilenya for 7 years, so I went on Gilenya, and I've had no new lesions and no side effects, which is great. So, knock on wood, Gilenya has been great. And Tysabri, though, like, if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have done Tysabri, actually. But the PML risk actually kind of scared me away. But since then, just like talking with all you guys, there's so many people that are on Tysabri, or even, Ocrevus, actually a lot of it now, but that wasn't around back then. So long story short, been on Gilenya for 7 years now. Again, no issues since. One of the things after being diagnosed that I wanted to do, because I just remember, just that feeling, right? Like, you have 8,000 emotions in your head at one time. You're scared, you're in doubt. My son was 5 at the time. Am I going to be able to take care of my son? Am I going to be able to keep working? Am I going to be in a wheelchair? And there's all these other questions that I think we all get, right? And so I reached out, looked on social media, and I found these like different forums. This is even before I looked on Facebook. Actually, Dr. Google, I guess, came first, so that just scares you even worse. Who's had Dr. Google? Thumbs up, I guess, in the chat. We'll try this. So if you Google it, it's a little scary, right? The internet's like a double-edged sword. You can find some really great information on there, but on the other side, you can find some really like terrible information on there. It just all depends on where you look. And as you can see, if you're on any like Facebook, actually seems to be getting worse and worse in regards to like false information being spread. And I'm not even talking politics. I'm talking even like with this COVID thing now. And you have, I mean, a good example, I saw something today that was like, oh, by the end of this week, the National Guard's going to do this, and there's going to be armed guards in front of your house. And it's like, no wonder people are panicking with all this stuff, right? So, you know, we got to be patient and, you know, just make sure we're listening to the right sources. So reached out to some different forums, and then from what I found out is actually talking with other people that had MS actually made me like so much more comfortable, right? It was able to accept the diagnosis easier and just realize that, you know what, like this isn't the end of my life, right? It's a new beginning. And sorry, Steve, I was just reading your comment there. Wow. So it's not, you know, the end of the world, right? It's a new beginning. And I have to say, like, since talking with like all of you guys, like made me feel so much better, and just realizing, you know, that how